Hello, everyone. We're here with Michael Sell, professor of photography, talking about his work in the EOU Art Faculty exhibition. So, Mike, I know a lot of these, the body of work you talk about in your artist statement that they're very related to the pandemic and taking pictures that you have to take as opposed to the pictures you want to take. Could you expand on that a little bit for us?
Sure. In thinking about, well, not in thinking about this work, at the beginning of the pandemic, I think most artists started to struggle with this idea of how you continue to do the things that you were already doing. And in my case, my practice involved a lot of traveling and portraiture of people that I didn't know. And when that was put to a halt, I think the drive to keep creating, because it's still there, you feel this compulsion to turn back to the materials, and in my case, a camera. And in the case of these images, which are all 35 millimeter captures on this wall, to start to turn the camera outward into the everyday, the life that this new sort of way of living was forcing us to deal with, and through that, I feel like I'm examining this domesticity in a way that doesn't feel as directed or based in ideas as my previous work, when I had time and the ability to travel and meet people and hear their stories. When everything becomes more familiar, it sort of is, it's kind of putting a different element of your life under the microscope.
How does it seem when you're used to telling other people's stories or getting other people's stories? How is it different now that it's focused on your story? I guess it's still your family in that though, too, so it's not just your story, but
No.
Is it different? How does it feel? Maybe that's a better question.
It feels different in the way that I'm not present in the work, because in previous work, as the photographer, as the author of the work, I guess, there's this level of being removed from it because the camera is in between the subject and the photographer. And here, in these, I think that the absence is more notable because of the personal connection to the subjects, my kids, my wife, my home, and not being in the images changes then how I view these things that are very familiar. It almost makes them, in a way, the camera helps make familiar things unfamiliar. And in the past, the last time we did this show, I remember talking a lot about the camera and the photograph as a document for preserving something that will one day no longer exist. Either that moment doesn't exist, just seconds after something like this happens, or the camera gives a weird perspective on a moment that, or a viewpoint or a perspective where the moment is kind of fleeting. But then also, in terms of the bigger picture, images will last longer than the people that are in them and the people that took them. And so there's this strange kind of awareness of mortality because of these images, and looking inward in the face of this this pandemic that's been shaped by this disease that could kill people. And I think that it's not amplifying I think that we think of the photographer as author as not in the same way that we think of the artist in drawing and painting and these manual arts, in a way that's less automated than photography. But but that when I'm not in the pictures, but the subject matter is still familiar and personal, that absence is kind of accentuated to me because of that personal connection.
A minute ago, you used the term document, and that's a word that kind of was maybe not exactly that word, but it was kind of bouncing around in my mind because of the way you've chosen to display these pieces with this kind of, it looks like a clipboard clip, and then they're from, a picture rail here, and they're not framed, so they do feel like kind of a document. I'm not sure, I don't have the right words for it, but could you talk about that? Is that something you were thinking about when you chose your display, or?
The display was driven first by the picture rail because of how these scenes relate to our home and then the domestic sort of nature of all of them. Since the pandemic started, we've been very busy, or keeping busy, only on like home-centered activities. We've been doing lots of painting, remodeling projects, just because of this downtime from not really traveling and visiting friends or going anywhere else. And I thought that a way to tie the images into that kind of domestic, to sort of amplify that domestic feeling, was this idea of the picture rail, of kind of an a classic kind of display system, so that people could move into a house and you use these hooks, and anything that you want to hang on the wall could be hung without fixed spacing and nails and walls and stuff like that. The coolness of the prints, I thought complemented the silver hardware nicely. So it felt like I was decorating the space with the images that I had made in a way that I haven't approached a gallery setting before. Whether other prints that I've done are unframed, there's still that sort of professional setting of the magnets or traditional framing with mats and glass, which I really like doing. But for these, I thought that the paper not being totally flat and projecting shadows on the wall, and the way that if somebody walked past fast enough, they could kind of flutter or rustle a little bit. They don't move as much as I thought they would, because they're not very heavy and the clip weighs them down. But that all kind of factored into this idea of the passing moment, or the passing of time, and the clips, though the clips looking like a clipboard was kind of an accidental, like a accidental blessing, I guess.
Like a happy accident.
Yeah, happy. In that they sort of, it amplifies this idea of the document and examining in a way of sort of inquiring into what goes on in this familiar setting that can stand out and be heightened in the way of its appearance and what it looks, and then an emotional connection to the subject matter too. So there's that. It does feel removed and analytical, which is kind of a way that I feel like I've worked a lot in the past. But there's also the nature of, I don't know, the clipboard and the idea of the inspector and getting down to business and sort of like getting work done. That kind of comes back to that compulsion, the idea of needing to make something, and the best thing to focus on is the thing that's already around us.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say about this work, or about where your work is heading, how this may have changed directions for you maybe in your work?
Well, I don't tend to make a lot of work that has a really strong personal focus. So it's kind of by accident that the situation has forced me and other artists like me to re-examine subject matter, especially from a photography perspective, or from people who are working in photography. And as far as where it goes, it's gotten me back into a routine of consistently making work and shooting and developing film, and by having a document of this sort of unique moment in time, it serves to sort of build memories on top of what will inevitably be in the archive of this moment as sort of structured, or as sort of recorded by the media, TV, internet, and stuff like that, and having kind of a face to that where the work serves to broaden the reality, I guess, of how people were and still are affected by all of this.
Any other last words?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.